Why does God let you suffer? Have you ever felt desperate because of the difficulties in life? You pray, but only silence seems to answer. You yearn for a sign from God, a word of comfort, a miracle, but all you get is more trials, more hurt. Why does God let this happen? There are times when life seems to be just darkness and suffering. We seek peace, seek answers, but instead of being comforted, we are swept deeper into endless storms. The feeling of being abandoned, the feeling that God does not hear us, can make our hearts heavy and discouraged. So why, when we ask Him, does He not answer immediately? Why does suffering seem to never stop? Imagine a 9-year-old boy in the innocence of childhood, earnestly praying to God to keep his mother alive. He believed that with God's goodness, she would not have to leave. But despite all the prayers, his mother passed away. That little boy could not understand why this happened, why God let him endure such great pain at such a young age. It was too great a loss for a child, a pain that none of us want to face. But the story does not end there. That boy grew up, carrying that pain in his heart, and entered the brutal war of World War I, in a place where war not only took lives, but also took away people's peaceful memories. He not only suffered physical wounds, but also witnessed the deaths of close friends, those who fought alongside him. Pain and despair seemed to be unavoidable companions, and when life seemed to be less painful when he met true love, once again, pain struck. The wife he loved deeply passed away from cancer. Is it possible to keep faith after experiencing so much loss, so much suffering? Surely many people would lose faith in God. Most would feel abandoned by God, would resent Him and try to deny His presence in their lives. But that boy, despite everything, did not let suffering take away his faith. He did not abandon God, did not turn away from faith. Instead, he became one of the greatest Christian thinkers of all time, C.S. Lewis. It was in the midst of extreme suffering that he found strength and faith, stronger than ever. In The Problem of Pain, he wrote, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world." If you are suffering, continue to watch this video, because perhaps these words of C.S. Lewis will help you realize that suffering is not a sign of abandonment, but an opportunity for you to find light in the midst of trials, for you to step closer to God. Suffering is not a sign God rejects you. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. John 16:33. When facing trials in life, one of the questions we often ask ourselves is, why does God let me endure this? Moments of suffering often make us feel abandoned. We may feel lonely, desperate, and a seemingly shaken faith. This feeling makes us wonder, has God forgotten me? Does He see the pain I'm going through? These feelings are completely natural when we face trials. But this is also when the devil wants to plant in our hearts one of the most dangerous traps. Suffering is a sign God has abandoned you. When the devil whispers into your mind, he says that if God really loved you, He would not let you suffer. But that is a terrible lie. Suffering is not a sign of rejection from God, but an opportunity for you to grow and become more like Him. C.S. Lewis, in his book, The Problem of Pain, analyzed this issue deeply. God does not create suffering, but He uses it to purify people, helping them become more like Him. Suffering is not abandonment. It is a purification process, a refining process. God does not turn His back on you when you suffer. He is using these very trials to sharpen you, like a goldsmith uses fire to refine gold. Imagine if you were a rough gem. Only when you endure pressure and are cut can you shine like a perfect diamond. God is doing that with you. He is purifying you through difficulties, helping you become stronger, purer. If Jesus, innocent and perfect in every way, also had to endure extreme suffering on the cross, then why do we think we can avoid suffering? Jesus chose the path of suffering, not because he deserved that pain, but because he loved us so much that he was willing to endure everything to redeem us. If the heroes of faith in the Bible, like Job, Joseph, or Paul, who persevered in faith through the harshest trials, still had to go through great pain, then why do we expect an easy life? God never promised that the path to follow him would be smooth, but he promised to walk with us through all difficulties, whether in darkness or extreme trials. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. Job 23:10. God has promised that even if we go through the darkest times, he will not abandon us. Suffering does not define you. How you face it in faith is what matters most. Remember that the trials you go through are not to make you fall, but to make you stronger, brighter in your faith. Do not let suffering lead you to doubt. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will do this. Psalm 37, verse 5. When suffering strikes, we are often tempted to ask, if God is really good, why does he let this happen? Doubt begins to creep into the mind, and gradually our faith is shaken. C.S. Lewis understood that feeling very well because he was once an atheist. One of the biggest reasons he rejected God initially was the existence of suffering. He looked at a world full of injustice, loss, pain, and asked, if there is an almighty, merciful, and righteous being, why doesn't he prevent all of this? That is the argument many people use to reject God's existence. But Lewis found a deep paradox. If we feel suffering is wrong, then why do we have an innate sense of justice? If this world is just a series of random events without purpose or order, then why do humans crave a world without suffering? In Mere Christianity, Lewis wrote, "How could I ever call a line crooked unless I had some idea of a straight line? If I say the whole universe is meaningless, why should I expect to find meaning in one corner of it? Precisely because we crave a world without suffering, it proves we were created for another world, heaven. Think about this. If you are a stranger in a barren desert, you will not know you are thirsty if you have never known a stream. Similarly, we would not feel this world is full of injustice if we did not have an innate awareness of absolute justice, a justice that can only come from God. Therefore, suffering is not a sign that God does not exist. On the contrary, our very dissatisfaction with pain and injustice is evidence that something greater awaits us, a place where every tear will be wiped away and suffering will be no more. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Revelation 21:4. Therefore, when suffering strikes, do not let it lead you to doubt, but let it lead you closer to God, the only one who can bring eternal healing. God uses suffering to transform you. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. 1 Peter 1:7. Why does God not prevent suffering? If he really loves us, why does he let us go through harsh trials? The answer lies in how God sees us. He does not just see your current self, but he sees the person you can become. C.S. Lewis once compared suffering to a tool for God to mold, refine, and transform us into a better version. If a rough piece of gold is not heated in fire, it will never become pure gold. If a diamond does not go through tremendous pressure, it will forever be a useless piece of coal. In The Problem of Pain, Lewis wrote, "The potter cannot shape the clay unless there is pressure and cutting." Imagine you are a rough block of marble. If an artisan only gently touched you without carving, you would forever be a lifeless rock. But if he used a chisel and hammer to cut away the excess parts, enduring pain, you would gradually become a masterpiece. God is that artisan. God does not create suffering, but he can use it to make you stronger, wiser, and closer to him. When you face suffering, ask yourself, what is God teaching me through this trial? And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Romans 8:28. Suffering is never meaningless. In God's hands, it becomes a tool to shape you, prepare you for something greater, and help you draw closer to him. God is with you in suffering. Do not abandon him. I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. John 14:18. When suffering strikes, we have two choices: either run to God or turn away and leave him. Sadly, many people choose the second way. In trials, they tell themselves, if God really loved me, he would not let me endure these things. I prayed, but no miracle happened. Perhaps I have been abandoned by God. But C.S. Lewis reminds us that suffering is not a reason for us to leave faith, but an opportunity to strengthen it. In A Grief Observed, the book he wrote after losing his beloved wife, he said, "I need God as one needs air." This statement is not just a declaration, but a cry from the bottom of the heart of someone who has tasted extreme loss. When Joy Davidman, the wife he loved dearly, passed away from cancer, Lewis not only faced pain, but also a crisis of faith. He asked questions that anyone who has experienced loss can understand. Why didn't God save my wife? Swing, is my faith just an illusion? Logically, does God really hear me? But in the end, he realized a simple but profound truth. God does not promise to remove all suffering, but he promises to go through it with us. Imagine you are walking through a dark forest, full of dangers and traps. If you walk alone, you will be terrified. But if you have a reliable guide, you can continue, even if you do not know the path ahead. God is that guide. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Psalm 23:4. Remember, God never leaves you. Sometimes, in the midst of suffering, we do not feel his presence, but that does not mean he is not there. He is holding your hand even when you do not see it. Do not let suffering take away your faith. Suffering is not a sign of rejection, but an invitation to closeness with God. Perhaps you are in a time full of trials, where pain, loss, and injustice make you feel abandoned. The storms of life beat on you relentlessly, and you wonder, where is God in these moments? But remember, suffering is not a sign that God rejects you, but an opportunity for you to draw closer to him. God never abandons you. He is not a being who only cares about the times you are happy and peaceful, but a being who is with you in every moment of trial. It is in times like these that he invites you to come closer, so that you can feel his love and presence more clearly than ever. Do not let pain distance you from him, but let that very pain help you realize that God is right beside you in every step of the trial. God does not leave you in difficult times, but he is there, beside you, so that you never have to face trials alone. Share with us about the trials you have overcome in your faith. What lessons have you learned through suffering? How have you found closeness with God in difficult times? We look forward to hearing your story. Today's pain can be tomorrow's testimony. Never forget that what you are going through today will become powerful evidence for your faith and resilience in the future. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of history. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.